I will sit by you, but when it's time for food, I have to.
I know, right? You have to be able to. Yeah.
She wants to be first in line.
She's got to be fast and first in line.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to this Salt Lake City School District Board of Education meeting today, September 20th, Tuesday. It's 5 p.m. We are welcoming Board Member Kennedy on via remote. I think we should be seeing Board Member Babe remotely as well, although I don't see him right now. Board Member Williams will be joining us in just a minute. He's in a meeting that ends, a remote meeting that ends at 5, but he's present in the building, so he'll be here in a minute. We've got 4 board members, or 5 board members present, so we can go ahead and take a motion to close this meeting for an executive session. I would be open to accepting a motion to close this meeting for the purpose of discussing litigation, negotiations, and/or property, as well as character, professional competence, or physical mental health of an individual, and/or deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems.
I can do that, President Ford.
Thank you.
I move that we go into executive closed session for the purpose of, at 5:01 p.m. on September 20th for the purpose of litigation, negotiation, and/or property, character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, and/or deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems.
Thank you, Board Member Sweat. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion by Christie and seconded by Dr. Kennedy. Let's go ahead and vote on that motion, beginning with you.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay, that motion carries. We'll go ahead and close this meeting. Thank you, Sam. Let me know when the streaming is off. Okay, sorry.
It's all right. Tiffany.
I might give you a minute if that's okay.
Did she say get her phone? Oh, her phone.
She has somebody walking her dog.
Oh.
Just in case they.
I thought she said she was going to go walk her dog.
All right, Sam, you want to let me know? Good to go? Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody here who's in this room to the Salt Lake City School District Board of Education study session for today, Tuesday, September 20th at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to welcome those who are participating remotely, Dr. Taylor and Board Member Dr. Catherine Kennedy. I'd like to thank Sam Quantz for the facilitating the YouTube stream of this meeting, and thank you for being here, Sam. We have a good meeting. We have lots of good things on our agenda tonight, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. For everybody here, welcome. James, thank you for being here, and Aaron Anderson, thank you. Robert, thank you. We've also got our legislative audit here. Sorry, I can never remember your first name, but thank you for being here. Yeah. Nope, thank you. And Amanda, welcome. All right. Nate, you didn't ask anybody to say the pledge, nope. Do you? Well, Dr. Buendia, do you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you so much.
All right. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. And I just want to also excuse Board Member Bade, who's not able to be with us tonight. We will miss him. And the first thing I want to talk about is our recognition. We had the opportunity to issue 2 honorary diplomas, and this is always really exciting. And I'm just going to read a little bio on both of those 2 honorary diplomas, and then I'm going to ask Vice President Salazar to just take a quick second and relate to all of you the experience he had in issuing those diplomas at the 60-year West High reunion that happened over the weekend. Very fun. The first was to Garth Jones Robinson. He attended both East High School and West High School in the late 50s and early 60s. He left school early to serve in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War. Garth has lived in Salt Lake City for the better part of his life, and Garth left high school to serve his country and married his first West High School sweetheart on one of his leaves. Garth was a firefighter for Salt Lake City for 30 years. After retirement, he worked for the Salt Lake City Zoo for 13 years as their maintenance technician. He has also held many jobs around the city, driving freight and making deliveries for local companies such as Utah, Wyoming City Delivery, ZCMI, and even the Salt Lake City School District. One of his regrets has been not graduating from high school, and he always made a point of telling his children to do better than he did. All of his children graduated high school and have lived happy, successful lives. So let's just give a round of applause. And that's really awesome. And the second honorary diploma and bio that I'll read was for Melvin B. Van Wagner. He attended West High School in the late 50s and early 60s. He left high school after his junior year to enroll in the U.S. Navy, where he served during the Vietnam War. And thank you. I'm so grateful to these men. He then came back to Utah after he was honorably discharged and was reunited with his junior high school sweetheart. He always regretted not graduating from high school, but made peace with his decision to serve in the U.S. Navy. He did go on to receive his GED after he had been home for several years. Melvin worked for the Federal Aviation Administration for 30 years and then retired to spend time with his wife, children, and grandchildren. Melvin and his wife have attended almost every West High reunion and have enjoyed their lifelong friendships with fellow classmates immensely. Let's give a round of applause to Melvin Van Wagner. Honorary diplomas were presented by Vice President Salazar at the 60th class reunion for West High School's class of 1962 on September 17th. I'm going to let Board Member or Vice President Salazar talk about that.
Thank you, President Ford. Yeah, I just, I guess would report that, I had the privilege to participate in that type of event alongside Principal Jared Wright from West as well. So it was just fun. I think both of us were just kind of in a bit of awe, right, to see these 2 gentlemen who have sacrificed and served so much, not only for our country, but our community and their families. It was just a real special treat. I think the highlight of it is that it was a surprise to both of these gentlemen. So they didn't know this was going to be happening, and I'm sure everybody was looking at Jared and I a little strangely, like, what are these 2 guys doing here? Who are these guys, And but just seeing the support that everybody in the room who's known these guys, who went to high school with them, it was just like it's about time. I'm really glad that we got a chance to do that, and I want to thank all the folks in the district who helped make that happen. Certainly thank their families who submitted the proposals upon their request, and so it was just a really heartwarming experience. And out of all the graduations I've had the chance to participate in as a board member, this one definitely rises to the top, just relative to how unique it was. And then, of course, just celebrating two gentlemen who've made that ultimate sacrifice, as they say, to to protect us and preserve what we are and who we are as a community and as a country. So it was an awesome experience. So thank you, everybody, for entrusting me to participate and do that on your behalf.
Thanks, Nate, and thanks for representing us well. I do appreciate that. You'll notice that the issuance of those diplomas is on our board consent agenda. It has to be approved by board action. So you'll see that on our consent agenda. So with that, I am open to entertaining a motion on our consent agenda.
I can do that. I move that we approve our consent agenda, which consists of the purchasing report in Excel format, the honorary diploma for Garth Jones Robinson, West High class of 1962, honorary diploma for Melvin B. Van Wagner, West High class 1962, case number 23-006.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Christie and a second by Bryce on the consent agenda. Do I have any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the consent agenda, beginning with Board Member Williams from Precinct 1.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay. Thank you, board members. That concludes the consent agenda for tonight. And now we'll go ahead and move to the discussion agenda, which is about a new special education school level support position. And I can see our Human Resource Services Director coming to the table, Mr. Logan Hall, thank you, and our Special Ed Director, Aaron Anderson, thank you.
Thank you, Board President Ford, for this opportunity, and thank you, board members. Tonight, I am bringing Aaron Anderson with me to help answer any questions that you might have. The proposal before you tonight really is seeking an adjustment to the salary schedule to recognize the difference in work of paraeducators as well as...
Watching a game.
You step out into the hallway, Mr. Schulte.
Or tell us how it's going, at least.
I'm going with Paul. Let's get out of here.
Mr. Kearsley, you might have to escort him out.
So as I was saying, back to business, we're looking for to be able to differentiate between the work of paraeducators and student support assistants who work in self-contained classrooms, as opposed to a paraeducator or a student support assistant working in just a general resource classroom. And that's why I brought Aaron along to help describe the difference in the work, because it really is a significantly different job. We have people in these roles already, but it is a difficult to fill position, and so we're looking to differentiate to better compensate individuals that are in this particular role in self-contained classrooms versus a general resource classroom. So Aaron, would you please tell us more about the difference between these two roles?
Yeah, so the proposal idea is coming from the aspect of asking for a 40-hour week position to support our again, self-contained classrooms that have this additional need to support supervision. It could be potentially getting students on and off the bus, lunch supervision, recess supervision is required. And then in these classrooms, there may be additional need for just daily self-care items, things like that. And so we are wanting to provide these schools access to employees who could support any and all of these needs as they see fit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And in addition to that, we're also seeking some just changes to the salary schedule. There were some omissions of positions that we've historically had, and just want to make those corrections on the hourly salary schedule so that we have better representation of positions that are currently filled but not adequately represented on the hourly salary schedule. So those are the
So just to be
change
clear,
proposals.
it's the items in red are the changes.
That is correct.
So it is a pay raise for any adult that has been placed in a classroom, I shouldn't say placed, but has been hired to work in the self-contained classrooms. So pay raise all across the board, and then we're also asking for the approval of a line on the salary schedule that indicates this 40-hour week position as well. That's not already there.
And those positions are eligible for medical benefits only?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to present to the board before I allow for discussion?
I believe that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. If you'll stay here in case people have questions for you. Board members, do you have questions for either Mr. Hall or Ms. Anderson? Catherine, go ahead.
So I don't have any questions, but I don't know if the other board members have had a chance to see that we had an email from former board member Sam Hatson about this issue. And since he has experience as a board member, and also since he's been working in a situation where he's acted as this kind of a paraprofessional, I just want to read his brief first and last paragraph and hope that we can attach his email to our minutes, if that's okay. He says, "Dear board members, I was happy to see tonight that you'll be discussing raising wages for paraprofessionals in our most highly impacted environments. From personal experience, I can tell you that our district could not come anywhere near meeting the needs of EE, behavior, and academic support students without dedicated, hardworking paras." And then he goes on to say that the rate, he supports the raise, but it's not enough. And he explains a few of the reasons why. And then he says at the end, "Pass this proposal, but don't stop there. Take the time to learn more about the students and employees working in self-contained environments, and please continue to support this underappreciated group of employees. I wish I had the perspective of being a special ed para when I was on the board. It would have put things in better perspective." So I just hope that we can attach this very thoughtful email to our minutes. And I just wanted to give his perspective as someone who's been in many seats in our district.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. I hear support. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Other questions or comments? Christy, go ahead.
So thank you so much, Erin and Logan, for being here tonight. I too am in total support of this. I too would say that if I had the power to put more money on the table, I would absolutely look at that piece of it. But before I would do that, I would want to ask that question of where's the, Alan's smiling at me because he already knows what I'm going to ask, is how are we providing for this increase and for the 40-hour? Where's the money coming from?
So this money's coming from current resources that have been allocated to special education. If you remember a couple years ago when we started raising the hourly salary schedule, we peeled off pieces specifically for special ed. Due to ESSER funds, they haven't had to dip into that, so that's still out there available for them to use for this increase.
So it won't impact other things that we already have. This is like new money that you're being able to, kind of.
It's there.
It's
I wouldn't
there.
say it's new.
It's not new, but it's there.
It is there to be used, and it is not there to take away from other areas, correct?
I think that's super important, you know, and I would continue to encourage you to say that. I think it's important for our families and our community to know that. So I think that what you've put together here is really thoughtful, and I appreciate that you've listened because we've been talking about this for a while. And I think that a living wage is so important for some of the paraprofessionals and educators that we have that are working with our most at-risk populations in our schools. And we need to make sure that we're providing the resources and professional development and support as much as possible. And so I applaud that we are moving towards that 40-hour with that contract and having medical benefits available, because that does make a difference to a family. So, thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Do we have other discussion from the board? I'm also in support of this. I will say that this is the first opportunity for the board to see this and discuss this, and so I understand if the board wants to take some time to think about this. I also am completely aware that this is designed to help alleviate an urgent, I was going to say emergency, and maybe you can tell me if it's there, but it certainly feels urgent to me based on what I've heard. So I applaud that. I think it is critical that we're able to talk about where this additional funding is coming from. I would certainly not want it to take away from programming you're able to offer already, and certainly feel like any other opportunities you have to support retention of employees is whatever ideas. I mean, I've appreciated, actually, Logan, I will applaud you for the things you've brought to us and the way you've been thinking about how to address issues and problems, and in ways that we can support our students and their families. So that I'm in support of this as well. Would love to hear a report. Maybe if we could ask you to come back to us, not just on this, but on other things that you might have need of support for, that we can address and help do that. And I'd love to hear if this actually helps in terms of retention. I certainly, with what you read about the work, it's hard. And retention is always hard. And anything we can do to support the people who are helping our most vulnerable students, I want to get behind. So thank you.
Welcome.
Catherine.
Is there anybody else, Bryce or Jenny, want to? Okay,
I just wanted to say-
Catherine. Okay, well, then go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot to put down my hand.
Did you not have anything else to say, Catherine?
No.
Let me find my timer. Hold on. All right. Gosh, well, I feel like all my colleagues said everything that I wanted to say relative to just the significance and the importance of it, and I really appreciate, Melissa, you bringing up, how do we measure its success, and how do we, adapt and evolve if we need to and where we need to. I really like the role clarity that a position like this has. I think that speaks a lot, for our folks that are in these positions to have that role clarity. I've been in institutions where roles are, and the clarity of roles is fuzzy, and that really brings people down. And in an environment where you're working with kids that have really specific needs, like our special education students, I think that role clarity really boosts up the morale of our folks. So as former board member Hansen mentioned, the discussion shouldn't stop here, so please keep coming back to us with what more specifically we could be doing relative to our students who are in special education in our district. So I just applaud you. Thank you for bringing this to us, and obviously I just can't say enough about the role clarity and how important that is for the folks in your department.
Okay. Go ahead, Christy.
So this is highly unusual for me, but I would like to make a motion to put this on our action agenda to approve the new special education school level support position.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Christy to move the new special ed school level support position to action, and a second by Bryce. Do we have any discussion before moving it to action? Let me ask one question. I appreciate, Alan, you're talking about where and how this money will come and that it won't be detracting from ongoing programming. Maybe, do you have a sense you could tell me how much you expect it to be? What, like an overall dollar amount?
How many are we looking at hiring in this position?
There's 20 positions of the up to 40 hours that are medical benefits, but we currently have about 11 positions that are open. It might even be more. Is that about right? Yeah. Because we hired 2 or 3 just in the last 2 days.
And so these won't be brand new positions. We're kind of expanding the positions we already have, so it's not a full 100% cost of a new position.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be too much, probably $50,000. But I have not done the exact math yet.
Okay. Well, then I would encourage us at $50,000 to look at maybe what else we could do too. We certainly have the opportunities to look for more. And then I appreciate the motion to move it to action, and I'm going to support it. But we haven't, because we haven't had an opportunity. I know that's why it's highly unusual for Christy, because we haven't had an opportunity to take public comment on it. Catherine read former board member Hanson's statement, but we do have a parent here in Amanda Longwell. Do you support us raising these salaries, and then with the commitment to continue to look at it? Do you want to say something?
I love every single piece of this conversation tonight. The need is beyond critical. I think money's a great start. More needs to happen there. Turnover rate is horrendous with our aides, and turnover, as we all know in the professional world, it makes it very hard to build up quality staff whenever you're turning over, which I still think is and then I absolutely love the fact that you're looking at outside of special education funds, because that money is so precious and so limited. So taking from special education funds is the big hall. So we have to find other avenues to pay for these extra needs, or we're going to continue to fail our students. So I mean, I got goosebumps. Thank you for hearing it. Thank you for saying it. Thank you for supporting it. Thank you for finding the money and pushing for looking for other ways to help with this very critical situation. Because it's across the district. It's a significant issue. So, I mean, my only comment is just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Blankety yes.
Okay. and thanks to Board Member Sweat then for making that motion to move it to action. I appreciate that. And the second by Bryce. We'll go ahead and vote on the motion to move this to action, beginning with Precinct 2 and Board Member Sika.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Okay, so that's moved to action. And we'll follow our procedure of now taking action on the new special ed school level support position. Do I have a motion?
Board member, or President Ford, I move that we accept the new special education school level support positions as proposed in the district memo.
With gratitude, right, Catherine?
With enormous gratitude.
With enormous,
toward
thank you so
parents.
much. Yes, motion by Catherine that we accept the new special ed education school level support position proposal with support. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Nate. We'll go ahead and vote. Oh, is there discussion to the motion? Okay, then we'll go ahead and vote, beginning with Precinct 3 and Dr. Kennedy.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Thank you. That takes care of that discussion item, and thank you so much to Mr. Hall. Appreciate you being here. That feels good. All right. The next item on our agenda is a time certain, which is the public hearing on the student fee schedule. So we can't start that until 7. I'll take just a minute right now to refresh your memory on what that is and what we're doing here. We talked last meeting I think it was on discussion. Don't quote me on that. But we did discuss the student fee schedule and the need to make a few adjustments. And this is, we're out of the rotation of our normal timeline for the student fee schedule changes, but there arose a level of need to change the amount on our fee schedule for student travel from $900 per student to $1,200 per student. And then because that was a need that arose, we also have the opportunity to make a few adjustments for schools and fees that were left off inadvertently when we approved this in March. So what we'll be doing now is what's required of us by statute. If we're going to make changes to this fee schedule, we need to have 2 public hearings to do that. The fee schedule and those changes are attached to the agenda, so you can see what the changes are. I've described one of them, but I haven't described all of them. But I think we had an opportunity to hear what those were at our last meeting, and they're on this agenda tonight. There were some fee schedules, mostly at SLCSD, as I recall. And so we're here at 7 exactly, so in 3 minutes, to have opportunity for public comment on the fee schedule. And because it's only 3 minutes away, I'm going to choose not to move on in the agenda. So how about we take a 3-minute break?
Yeah, Paul put the game back on.
I
I'm sorry, Paul, I shouldn't have gone there.
I'm glad you did.
I'll just wear it, man.
I want to know.
I don't know which game it was.
It's always the Yankees. It has 59 homers.
Yeah.
Historical, it's cross-curricular.
I did.
Big milestone.
I was thinking earlier, and this is completely inappropriate and out of line, but that we ought to have walk-up songs for all of the people who come to present to the board, and we can play your walk-up song when you come. What would yours be, Christina?
Do they get to choose them, or do we get to choose them? Who chooses the walk-up song?
Yeah.
They do. Yeah. Everybody gets to choose their own walk-up song.
Yeah, my son has a daughter that plays ball.
Yes.
What? Yeah.
No, I'm good. Thank you. Go get some water. You've only got 1 minute.
Oh, okay. I'll use my elbows, as Jenny has taught me.
It's actually calm. Awesome.
I don't think I saw those before.
All right, no, I guess it's not 7.
No, just, if you send it, no comments on it. Okay. But no comments are fine. Oh, yeah.
She's fine.
Okay, it's now 7 o'clock. Well, if you're offering.
Oh, no, it's Sandra. She only has a few. If there's
All right.
enough to go around, sure.
It's now 7 o'clock. So I'd like to open for public comment on the student fee schedule for this year. Thank you, thank you. Want the microphone? Did we have anybody sign up? April? Anybody sign up for requests to speak? Anybody here want to speak to the changes? How many minutes do we need to give it? About 1, okay, all right. I appreciate that we haven't heard from anybody, but I do know that this board, because we've had these conversations quite often, take our role in approving fees very seriously. We know it's always something that we were conscious of when we're charging fees. We want to make sure that every student has equitable access to every opportunity that this district offers, and there are lots of them. So we do take it seriously, and I appreciate the thought that the board puts into that. And I also want to say thank you to Executive Policy League, whatever your title is, Christina, Policy and Legal Services Executive Director Christina Kindle, for her help with student fees. Thank you. And thank you, board. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our study topics. on the agenda, and the first item for discussion is the Rose Park Clinic remodel. For that, I'm going to invite Mr. Yapius to the table, probably Paul Schulte and Nicole Palmer. Thank you for being here. The wonderful principal of Rose Park, yes. And
Too much. I'm
does
done
that
for
mean
the
you're
year.
coming next? I think at this point, you're a regular.
I know,
Agenda
right?
spot.
Right.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for
for
the
having us.
attachment to our agenda, so that the board had an opportunity to see what it was that you were bringing to us. But I'm going to give the time to you to review.
Well,
and share
first of
with
all, I
us.
want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you. It's with great pleasure that I'm joined here by Principal Palmer and Paul Schulte, who have been instrumental in, we've been visiting quite a bit and figuring out our Rose Park Community Learning Center. We prepared a brief presentation for you, for the board, more of as a study and report to this board, because we felt that when the Rose Park CLC, you see it? We're trying. When the Rose Park Clinic, or the CLC, was developed in 1993, I think we're having a hard time trying to.
Sam, am I doing something incorrectly besides looking at the screen?
Just point the remote at Sam. He's doing.
Let me see.
Just point the remote at Sam, and Sam will make it
Sam
work.
just be the advancer?
Sam got it.
There you go.
Thank you,
Okay,
Sam.
in '93, the Rose Park Administration explores a full-service community model. In '97, Rose Park together forms and develop programs, raise funds for a CLC. In 2007, grounds broken through 34,000 square feet.
3,400.
3,400.
It's tiny, sorry.
Yeah, 3,400. Additional Rose Park Elementary. The Rose Park CLC opens and begins offering programs in 2008 and 2021, working with, we begin to examine to see what the CLC has done and what has been able to provide. But what I want to say to this board is that, and I know some of you have been here long enough to see this, evolve over the years. The work that has been done at the CLC and the services that we provide at this location is significant for the Rose Park community. You see families going in every day looking for services in healthcare, preventative care, and I can't say enough to this board that the work that was done previous to, to me with Mikkel and also Mike Williams and others and some of the board members that are here, that was significant. That it had a profound impact during the pandemic. Without the CLC at that location, many families would have struggled. But that's kudos to this board and to the vision that they had many, many years ago to develop and to create this Rose Park CLC. The 5 pillars of the CLC focuses on early childhood education, youth academic support and enrichment, adult education post-secondary opportunities, access to physical and mental health care, community development, and civic engagement. Padres Comprometidos, a program that was established there, has worked with the West Side Institute, has done significant work to develop leaders in our community. And what I can say as far as access to physical and mental health care, Intermountain Healthcare has been a tremendous partner at Rose Park. And when you look at these 5 pillars, all I can say is that the level of support and education that's going on at Rose Park is significant, and we appreciate you for that. What I want to show you is Rose Park CLC impact and talk a little bit about that. Right now, we have hundreds of volunteers hours that, 544 hours supporting students during school day and after school. Parent volunteers support the Community Learning Center, clothing distribution, holiday assistance, school events, COVID vaccine. One of the biggest food distributions really happened at the CLC there. They were for miles waiting during the pandemic, families wanting their, the support. Intermountain Healthcare sees over almost 80 to 100 patients in a 4-day week, really. They're only there for 4 days, and it's a small clinic. 10 employees are parents and students, previous students. 8 Rose Park students receive free and eye exams, glasses, Friends for Sight. That's one of the locations we really have focused to make sure students get their glasses. Rose Park distributed food to 47 families at 217 individuals during March through August 2022. But then we've had other opportunities for families to receive resources. Approximately 1,520 COVID vaccines were distributed through Rose Park COVID-19 vaccine clinics. I also would like to ask Nicole to just share a little bit about, we had a meeting about a week ago with Intermountain Healthcare, some of their board members and individuals who wanted to see the clinic, and they provided us a brief report, but they had some stunning numbers as far as the number of clients or patients that come into the clinic.
I do want to speak, but James, not to diss your presentation, but this is really underrepresented of the numbers of families that got food and assistance and medical care and glasses. I mean, it's in the dozens to hundreds of, especially during the pandemic. And just Monday, we had the monthly Utah Food Bank come, and we just served, 100 families. Like this is not really bragging it up enough. So it really is a central location in Rose Park, and I really do think that I just have to give credit to the people who worked all during the pandemic and continue to support the families. Our CLC crew is awesome. The clinic. Oh yeah, so that's Jackson, isn't he cute? It was his birthday yesterday. I'm a little distracted. Okay, so the clinic, we went through kind of a rough time right before the pandemic with the clinic, and I don't know if you know, but we had a provider that was not welcoming, and really over time really drove away our clientele. And we talked a lot with James and with Intermountain about that for a couple of months, and really we were just like, we're not thriving. We're not seeing the kids that we want to see and the families that we want to see and the community members. And so right about the time of the pandemic, it kind of got to the point where they were taking us seriously and realizing we needed a different provider. And then the pandemic hit and they shut the clinic. So we really were in limbo for kind of a long time. And so it was really exciting when James reconnected with Intermountain, and they said, we want to come back, and we said, we want you back. And at the very first meeting, we had so many different people around the table, I can't remember all of them. And we just all agreed that we wanted to reopen the clinic, kind of rebrand it. And a provider had been found. Her name is Scarlett Reyes, and she is actually from the community. She is wonderful. Her staff is wonderful, and without even a ton of advertising, because we continue to have conversations about how we can message the clinic. Apparently it gets confused with the Rose Park, some other clinic down the street, but we are still seeing, I think she showed us that in the few months that they had been open, like James said, at the 3.5 days a week, we had seen basically 1,200 patients, which is gigantic. And their days are filling up to the degree that they're going to start opening on Fridays. So it's exciting. The momentum is there. The need is certainly there. And we have the right people at the table and the right people in the clinic. So it's really an exciting time for us, as well as the CLC in general. I think we've all noticed that people want to be together. And so everything that we've started to offer since we've been able to reopen has been incredibly well attended. And so it's just exciting all the way around for the clinic and the rest of the programming.
I also want to mention that part of the reviewing the memorandum of understanding, the contract that we had with Intermountain, was to also making sure that our families had access to the services that we're providing. And that's why it's so important. You know, we work very close with legal, Christina Kendall, and just, you know, every time we run into a situation, we've been able to go back into the contract and say, this is what we had agreed to. So I think that's what, having those conversations with them, it brought them back into the Rose Park community. And at that point, you know, also not only back then it was board member Arwini, and then we met with Bryce Williams also, and other community members to just get their feedback and to kind of hear from them what they think about the Rose Park Clinic, because it is an investment also with Intermountain Healthcare, a significant investment, but also is an incredible partner to have with us. And at that time also brought in Paul. Paul has been incredible to just hear him out and, his suggestions as far as what we can't do, and just conversations to be able to make sure that we're following process and getting together all the information to make sure that if we're going to renovate this place, what would it look like? So some conversations started, key improvements for accessibility, safety, modernization, additional program offerings, and enhance the community service, parking improvements to allow community better access in CLC. So I'll ask Paul to kind of just talk a little bit about those conversations that we had and go from there.
Certainly. Thank you, James. So looking at the timeline, we're 25 years into this, a quarter of a century, and it's amazing how quickly it goes by, and things become a little bit dated, a little bit maybe not as available as we'd like. And so over time, we started looking. One of the things that jumped out at me immediately is the parking and also the signage. So it was easy to drive by Rose Park and not even know that the clinic was there. And then even when you got there, the parking was difficult. And so right out of the chute, we were being, Nicole was very supportive. Would that be a fair way of saying that? Helping
Pushy?
I was using a positive affirmation.
I'll go with pushy.
It was pushy for the right reasons, because the parking was very challenging, and it decreased the availability of folks using the clinic. So that was a challenge right there. The signage we took care of right away. And then, if my memory is correct, and Board Member Sweat, you might recall this, I believe the Rose Park was the first C. And it kind of shows, because it was kind of built with the passion, but maybe not the best planning. And so we were always concerned about the layout of the room for instruction and for the kitchen and things like that. The clinic was fairly small, tiny, and just kind of people sitting on top of themselves and getting in and out. And it had served its useful purpose. It was great because it was the first, but it was time to update it and make it more accessible and user-friendly. And so we immediately could do the parking without any, within our district resources, and work on the signage, and those type of things have already made an impact. We have a list of architects that we use, and go down the list, but it just happened that the next architect on the plan was the same architect that was the architect for the original project.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was great. And so they were excited to weigh into this. We've had several options come across our desk, and we've kind of sharpened our pencil a number of times, but we believe this will allow us to really have more space, more user-friendly clinic. The entrance is towards the front now instead of hidden in the back and things like that, and as well as, I don't know if we have in this presentation,
It's right there.
for the instructional space as well, there's some things we want to do there. I don't know if we
Yeah, also to note, like the new clinic space where you see exam rooms, that is on the 10th north side.
Yeah.
So it flips, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is the inside of the building, so if you actually kind of
That's
flip it
helpful.
upside down.
Will you orient us a little? 'Cause
Yes.
We've been in that facility. I'd love to.
There we go, thank you.
Okay, right here is the new, this is on 11, is that 11th?
10th north.
10th north.
10th.
Sorry, because the pointer is not horrible. Can you see?
Yeah, I can't see the point. I can't see the pointer.
On this side.
Okay, there
There
it
it
is.
is.
Oh, there we go.
So right here is on 10th North. Right now, the clinic is on the opposite side and it's hidden. So, which is in the back room where it says kitchen. This is teaching kitchen. You see that on the back
That's where the
end?
clinic is now.
So this is the proposed
This is the
change.
This is the change.
You're
So
basically
just- yeah.
flipping the kitchen with the
But,
clinic.
And also
That-
making
okay.
the teaching space much more user-friendly. We have islands in the centers, we have the stoves on the perimeter, and so the oven used to be kind of tucked in the middle, that it would be the south east corner of the space. Just as a kind of point of reference, when I first received this position, I went searching for the clinic and the
Everyone
CLC, and it took quite an effort. I was kind of embarrassed, but Todd finally showed me where it was. And so having that clinic, we felt was very strategic up front, right off the street there, so folks can access it much more user-friendly and more accessible, and at the same time, increasing the effectiveness of the teacher space. And Nicole maybe can speak to this more than I can. I don't know how much the kitchen has been used for an instructional space. It's used a lot, don't get me wrong, but I don't know about classes and things of that sort.
So the kitchen right now is in the main room with the big table, the large classroom.
Yep.
You see that in the
And
center?
it's one stove, one small counter, one refrigerator.
Corner.
It's tucked in a corner, so, I mean, it gets used, but it isn't, everyone's crowding around, or we use our faculty room, so that gets used for CLC space as well, if we're doing cooking things.
So when you look at this, the renovation plans, really, we're flipping where the clinic is at is going to be more towards the front of the street, and there's going to be easy access. And the teaching kitchen is going to be in the back. We believe that the design is going to open the space. And the large classroom that's in the middle, that's going to remain, but it will be, we're using it right now. We've had a couple meetings there, and we've opened it up, and really, it makes a huge difference. So there's going to be just some minor changes in the two other classrooms. They're more office. This is conference room. Those are more for our partners when we work with DWS or Valley Mental Health or other services. They're able to use those rooms. So I guess the question is, what is the cost, right? I mean, because 25 years ago, it was paid through philanthropic dollars, and a lot of the support came in. The vision, it was incredible. I mean, we've used it, and now, I mean, the number basically is 970,000. That includes with a 20% increase in materials and inflation that's taken place. And this is pretty conservative also, according to Todd. We worked very close with him, and we wanted to make sure that what would it look like. The nice part about this is that Intermountain Healthcare is a partner. They also are serious about this place and how much services they can provide to our families in that neighborhood. I wanted to bring this to the board, and thank you, Alan, for, always listening and talking to Nicole and Paul. We wanted to present this and shared also with Bryce the idea of what could happen. This is a perfect timing for us to be able to hopefully, that obviously this is just discussion and possibilities that what we can do at Rose Park, but it would be great for us to really go out and get our donors to support this. Just recently had a visitor from one of our donors who helped with Liberty, who was very interested, and others who would like to take a look at that. But anyway, this is exciting, a lot of growth we've done, but kudos to each and every one of you who were board members back then. The Rose Park Clinic has made an impact in that community, so.
Since we're studying this, thank you so much, James. Thank you, Nicole, for being here, and Paul. We're studying this. I'm hoping that you can maybe talk us through the building cost estimate and what exactly that proposal entails.
It's pretty direct. The costs are going up astronomically, but it is.
But the second attachment that you have has, lots of information, lots of financial
So-
information. Is that to do the picture that you showed
Yeah, so
us?
I would think
I just want to connect those two.
exactly, to follow that lead, let's go back one slide to the to that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we have the classroom in the front now, and so the cost associated with this is the brick and mortar. You see the exam rooms, both of the exam rooms in the office, that's completely new. The reception, so that whole area, that's the clinic, requires all the work associated with those walls and mortar and brick and drywall, all those type of things.
This is additional space to the building. No, this is
No,
within the.
it's
We
within,
wish.
we're not
No,
adding,
it's
we're
in
not
there.
adding anything onto the buildings. Sorry for that confusion, my apologies. But so where that, what would be, as you're looking it to the right, all that space there is now currently a classroom. And so it's going to be repurposed and remodeled to provide what you would see is about two offices, actually a third one, well, two offices and a restroom, then a reception space, a little break space, and then the office in the back for the doctors to do their notes and dictations and things of that sort. And then the reception area. And then you see that, and this is very crucial, it may seem there's a door there, but just accessing that main entrance in the front of the building rather than having to go around the back is huge. But, so that's all that. And then back to the back, so if we go all the way to your far left, where the teaching stations are now, it's just the opposite a little bit. We got to tear down. Fortunately, in the front, we're just adding up, but in the back, we have to tear down and then put some new walls up and finish and appliances and things of that sort. The classroom and the other two offices are virtually unchanged. So it's the front to your right for the clinic and to the back for the instructional and teaching space, and adding that office, and that is where the mortar, the brick, the drywall, all the items that are listed there, fire suppression, the plumbing, HVAC, it's amazing how it just adds up. One thing I've learned about this is everyone always thinks I can just put a light in or a fan in and things, and it's never quite as simple as we'd like. And so this number also has contingency built into it, and I'm always cautious when it comes out to estimating things right now with the market that we're in, okay? It's an interesting time, the likes we've never seen. And so when James says it's conservative, that may be very accurate, but yeah, it's just remodeling that whole wing of the building for the most part.
And I think I think our last plan was to start with the clinic space so they don't have to close, right?
Correct.
And get that done first, and then they can move in and finish the rest. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to get that done and then move exactly, Catherine, but it was kind of freaky hearing the voice from the sky.
Okay, Christy had a question.
So, Principal Palmer, you said, it's tiny, and, but I will tell you, it's hard not to get emotional about this because, when we broke ground for that, there were a lot of tears because it was a great thing, that our district decided to do under the direction of Dr. Withers and Mike Williams. And it was a great day, the day that we broke ground. We knew that it was small, but it was the jumping off point of our future CLCs. And I look at what we've done as a board and what we've done as a district for wraparound services for our families. It's astounding. I mean, we really are a bright star in our state. And I look back at that time, and I think it started tiny, but look what it's grown into.
Yes, and I hope you know I didn't mean it.
Oh, I know that.
We like it tiny, and we
I
like
love
it cozy.
Yeah, I love that. But I
think
think that this goes to something that, I talk a lot about on the board, and that's obligating a future board. And we knew that we were going to be doing that. We knew that we were going to be obligating a future board in providing services, renovating, making sure that those CLCs continue to provide the services that we wanted it to provide for our families. And so as I look at that, I think, the discussion that we need to have as a board is how much money do we take out of capital? How much money do we look at, through raising funds? Because when we decided to build these CLCs, we knew that we'd have to go into partnerships, and we knew that we would also have to look at what type of money we'd be able to put in. I think it's so exciting that we're at this point for Rose Park.
That's cool.
It's been 15 years, since that was built, and I think that it's weathered its time, but it certainly now is time for it to get a facelift. I think that I'm excited that you've been thinking about this. I think that I know that the former board president, Cliff Higbee, who lived in Rose Park, would be so happy, to know that this was going on. I'm sure that Bryce feels the same way, knowing that this is going to be such a huge service, for his family. I love that you've changed the signage and looked at the parking, because then it becomes inviting, right? And that's what we've always wanted our CLCs to be. So I think this is, President Ford, going to be an exciting conversation that we're going to have as we work with our business administrator, Alan Kersley, and through facilities, and really figure out, how much money we'll be able to put in, what that looks like, and so that the whole amount doesn't lay at the feet of trying to fundraise all of that. And that's what goes back to that obligating the future board, when we make these decisions, in the past. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Christy. Do I have other? Bryce, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have questions, but I have some comments to make. And Christy kind of alluded a little bit to my feelings on the building and the opportunity that's available. James brought me into this conversation, I think, my second week on the board, probably the first meeting I attended as a board member. But I wanted to talk about the space a little bit more and the community there. A lot of what James had said earlier about the services and the opportunities that were provided through the building. I definitely saw in my own perspective those lines right in front of my home and the glimmer of hope that building and that space and the community that was built there. I've utilized the CLC myself and the clinic, specifically getting a COVID test there. But I hear a lot of members in my community, our community, talk about the hope that building represents and the opportunity that's available there. And I'm just really excited about the opportunity that's available. It's really going to mean a lot to our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Bryce. Other discussion or comments from board members?
Melissa?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So I guess, and Principal Palmer, you did a great job, but could you just maybe re-emphasize the significance and the type of impact that having a CLC and a clinic and the teaching space for students and their families within your school, what kind of impact that has on students day to day, not only just their emotional well-being, but then of course their academic performance? What kind of impact are we looking at?
That's a heavy lift. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is because we are a CLC and really because we're a small CLC and the CLC is connected to our building. Unlike some of the other CLCs that our kids see community members coming and going, and they see their family members coming and going, and of course safety is our top priority. We're very careful about that, but they actually see community members engaging with us as a school staff, because there is separation between our CLC staff and the rest of us, but not really at the same time, right? A lot because we share space, and a lot because that's the way we run our school is, we sit down and meet and plan things together across the CLC and the school, because we feel like that really isn't separated. A lot of our kids take lessons, again, we had closure. So know that we had a lot happening and then nothing happening, well, that's not true. No programming happening during COVID. It was all food distribution and testing. Many of our students were there, with their families getting COVID shots and tests, but I can speak about how exciting it is now that we have some of our programming up and running again, like our ballet Florcorico, thank you, just started again, and 30 of our students signed up to take it, right? So the students prior to the pandemic, it was a lot of other kids from other schools, which are welcome as well, but now our kids are coming together, their parents are coming, they're hanging out in the building in the evening while the kids take dancing. We host Ballet West. We have Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Angelica, our CLC coordinator, has a list of 7 different programs that are starting up in the next month. And most of those participants come from our family community. So how it directly impacts data, that's always been really difficult to say that this program X, Y, or Z, shows up on a RISE test. But I do know that our students are well looked after, and with the wraparound services, we're able to make sure they're in school as often as they can be. participating in every way that they can be and being supported extracurricularly along with their families. One other example, Nate, is who is doing this? It's a family, generally a family wellness series for 8 weeks. And like 15, Angelica told me 15 of our families have signed up for 8 weeks to come together. I don't even remember the provider. So, it's hustling and bustling and it's exciting. And I will say I know I can talk a lot, but the clinic, just having the clinic there, we get clinic permission slips for our kids. So if we have a student who isn't feeling well and they have a permission slip signed, Scarlett comes and takes care of them. If we have an emergency, the day of the broken arm, clinic was in the office, like within 3 minutes, taking care of the student until the parent could get there. So it really is kind of like a really well-oiled machine for all of our students and their families.
I love that.
Thank you. I
Thank
have
you for that support. Go ahead.
one more
You've got time.
question for Paul. I love the rendering so far. I know they're just black and white things on a picture here, but I'm wondering what kind of we had a really great discussion on special education and how we're providing supports in the classroom through paras, but kind of physical accommodations relative to the learning space or the clinic or even the kitchen space there. Are we thinking about adaptive things for the kitchen and for the clinic to make sure that folks who may be in wheelchairs would have accessibility to the classes that we're offering?
It's funny you mentioned that. We actually had to adjust the plans to meet ADA and meet the accommodations because of that. The one part I don't know that you mentioned, and I could venture a guess, but I will double back and check to make sure at least one of the ovens, those stoves, are lower for a child that may be in a wheelchair or an adult that may be in a wheelchair. But we had to make to change some of the original plans to be more accommodating.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So if there's no other discussion or study from board, I think what I'm hearing is support for this process. So let's get moving on it, and we'll have a future conversation about funding, and James, continue to work with what you're doing, and Paul and Nicole for sure. Gratitude for the work you're doing for the students. Thank you, and I expect to see this on an upcoming board discussion so that we can start moving forward. But you're here support, so let's keep moving forward and keep the conversation going forward.
Thank you.
Keep the momentum going, and it's very exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Nicole.
Thanks,
Paul.
Nate. Thanks, Bryce.
Find a way to invite Nicole back for the next meeting.
If you bring crumble cookies.
Teacher's son works there, and he brings home at the end of the day.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, well,
I know we're going to be.
all right then. Okay. Next up for study is our student achievement plan, and I have to say that I am very excited for this board study session, and I have really appreciated the work that's been going on in this on this student achievement plan over the last while, really, and the committees that have been meeting and the work that they've been doing, and reading through this presentation, which thank you to Dr. Buendia for sending this out to the board for our review, so that we could come prepared to this study session to really dive in to this strategic plan for student achievement. So I'm going to turn the time to Dr. Buendia and Dr. Hall with so much thanks and gratitude for the work that you're doing, really at a high level and with real focus on how we can benefit our students. It's just so meaningful what you're doing, and we're so grateful. So I'm excited for this, and I can just tell by this stuff around the room that this is going to be a really fun conversation.
So, cabinet members, don't get too comfy with where you're sitting, because we'll be back to the regular setup at the next board meeting. This is just all intentional. It's exciting. We're really, all of our committees, I will say, have been highly engaged. We're pretty excited. So with that said, we're going to roll forward. All right, so, sorry, let me just, okay. So with our strategic plan, you notice the asterisk there. It's because we want to make sure that we emphasize that it's a carefully designed plan to serve a particular purpose. And so we are going to be using strategic plan for student achievement. You'll hear that, pretty consistently. So then the next slide is basically our timeline. I need to go. You're like one slide ahead of me. Who's? Okay.
Oh,
sorry. I'm like, Dr. Hall.
He's got the clicker.
I feel like it's
But
hazing all over
if
again
you
at
notice,
East High.
if you notice though, the person who's got the clicker just aims it at Sam, and then Sam takes care of it.
Okay, so what you'll notice is we'll keep revisiting this when we present, and you'll notice the strikeout, meaning that we've accomplished it and we've updated it. So our triangulation meeting, and I'm going to still, Alan's word, not to be confused with strangulation. So I can't be as deadpan funny as him, so sorry. Anyway, we didn't have it in June, we held it in September, and then, of course, our update to you in September. And we're on track to have, continue our committee work and then another triangulation meeting. It's already scheduled, actually. Thank you, Dr. Hall. So with that said, next slide, please. So we had, just in case you're wondering, what triangulation means. We had a lot of co-leads at our triangulation meeting asking that, and some of the times they were being facetious, and other times I think they were really asking, what does it mean? And then that's where we came up with strangulation, because it's like, does it mean we're gonna, strangle somebody? So the technical term comes from anybody who has done any kind of graduate level work understands that in order to have a thesis or a doctoral study have validity, you need to triangulate your data. And so that's what it is. And so for our purpose, we are creating coherence, and we're also making sure that we keep one another informed. That's key, especially when we have so many committees, because we don't want to be we want to make sure that we are using our time efficiently, okay? So there you go with that. And Dr. Hall has the next few slides.
So one of the things that we did when we held our triangulation meeting is that we established some norms, and each of the working groups also established norms. And that's a guideline for how we're going to act together and how we're going to communicate. And that's really important when you're doing work like this, because you're talking about things that are really important and things that people are very passionate about. And so we want to have some guidelines for how we're going to have those conversations and really talk about those difficult subjects, which will come to you as very difficult subjects in terms of what's the most important thing to do in the district. How do we move this forward? What are the things that are the most important? And so in doing that, we created a set of norms that we are using for our group. And that will come up next. Thank you. And these were the initial norms that we started with. We have changed them slightly as we move forward, but there are a couple of things that I think are really important there. We wanted to make sure that we kept students always at the center. This is a strategic plan for student achievement. And then we thought about or talked about, what does that mean to have students at the center of this conversation? We want to be respectful during these conversations and really make sure that when we're questioning ideas or thinking about why things are happening, that we're assuming positive intent, and that we're always asking, what is the idea, but that's not a criticism of the person or the team or the committee, but rather we're putting everything on the table so that we can make the best decision for our students, our families, our communities, our district for the next 5 years. And that we're really going to be solution-oriented. Now, one of the things that we always do when we come to a group like this is we look at our norms and we say, is there anything in these norms that we cannot live with?
or anything that needs clarification. And then I always invite the group as they enter into this learning space to choose one that they are going to particularly think about as they go through this next section of our presentation. And I'd like to do that now. I'd like you to take a look at these and see if there are any of them that need clarification, or if there's anything for the purposes of our conversation over the next 20 to 30 minutes or so that you would like to add. And then personally, and I won't ask you to share, but to think about what one you'll be concentrating on to govern your own behavior.
Thank you, Dr. Hall, for the opportunity. I really appreciated the conversation we had in the group that you and Mr. Schulte were the leads of in coming up with norms, and I learned a lot about this process and how important it is as a group, and to kind of come together on what those expectations are. And I really love the growth mindset for all. I would say that that's been something that I learned from that conversation is, and I see Dr. Wayne do it do it a lot. Mm-hmm. You start wanting to kind of speak in like, we don't want this to happen, but instead flip it around to say what we do or what the positive result you're looking for is, and I've really appreciated that from the way you model it. And so I've learned a lot through that.
Well, thank you.
Christy?
Going to echo a little bit of what Melissa said. I mean, I think that we have to have a growth in our mindset. We can't continue to do things the way that we used to. But I also think that I feel, and I always have, that our shared governance philosophy is a North Star. And I talk about it all the time when I'm in different settings. Bringing people to the table, asking what, our stakeholders, what's important to them, is key to our success. And so I love that that's there, that when you talk about our strategic plan, we bring our stakeholders together, work to provide a voice for all groups who have traditionally been marginalized and or underserved. And I'm so glad that that's there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very important part of this, is we recognize that not every group has traditionally been represented in a plan like this. Are there any of these norms that you cannot live with, or are we okay?
Let me interrupt you. Dr. Kennedy had her hand raised. I'm sorry. I apologize, Catherine, that because of the screens being shared, we can't see you.
So sorry.
But I think we'll be able to hear you. So go ahead, Catherine.
I don't want to interrupt, but this was a great document. I really think it's very thoughtful and comprehensive. The one that I really like is, I like all of them, but I really like the idea of seeing problems as opportunities. I think that's a really great mindset, and I really appreciate that being there. I also love the focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work that's implicit in most of these norms, and particularly the one that Christy just identified. So thank you so much for these.
Thank you.
Nate.
Thank you, President Ford. Again, I think all these are really, really important, and to kind of touch base on what I feel like President Ford and Board Member Sweat talked about. I really love the number one, I guess, group norms in yellow here. Obviously, keeping students at the center is critical. It's what we do, and I know that we're always continuing to fine tune that as a board and as a district. But the third yellow point there, I think, is the one that sticks out to me the most, which is in line with what others have said too. Embrace future change, and that all of the contributions from stakeholders, that we should be embracing that, because change is hard,
Yeah.
And I find, and not only here in the school district or on the board, but even in previous institutions and places of employment that I've worked or continue at work at now, change is really, really difficult. And the notion that, this is how things are done, or this is how we've always done things, we have to learn how to let go of that in some ways, right? Especially as our community continues to evolve, as our school district continues to evolve demographically. I mean, gosh, even when Bryce and I were in school, a year apart, we were nowhere near a majority minority school district, and to be one now, I think we really have to look at how do we not only embrace future change, but how do we talk about that, and how do we celebrate that type of work, because we need to be doing something. And I know, as we've talked about student achievement plans in my time on the board, getting ready for a change, with COVID happening and postponing it a year, to where we are now, that notion of evolution and students being at the center and closing the gaps that we have, I think can only be accomplished through embracing change. And so that's the one that really sticks out to me. And however I can flex those muscles alongside my colleagues and administrators and all the way down into the classroom, I want to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other thoughts from board members?
Then
Back to you, Dr. Hall.
Thank you. I'll just, again, ask you to think about that norm that you're going to keep at the front of your mind and conversations as we move forward. We're going to begin with a review of our committee work, just to kind of go through everything that has happened so far. And we have a couple of guiding questions that we're hoping that you'll listen for. And if you've noticed Dr. Bundia's posters around the room, you're right, you will be getting up. And we're going to be asking you to think about and take some notes. So we've printed the slides for you, so there's lots of room to take notes as you listen. But these are the questions that really came to the front of the triangulation committee as the 20 of us were in this room. And part of that was, that undergirding philosophy that we want to have of all of our departments working together and working efficiently. And I know that, the board, you have had many conversations about, we are getting smaller, but we are excellent and we want to keep that excellence, and part of that is in being efficient. So some of the wonderings that we had, or some of the guiding questions that we considered, was where was there overlap between those committees? Where did we see places where different committees were talking about the same thing? Because those are places that we need to build connections. Where was there redundancy? Are there things that are happening in the same place or in different places, maybe because we didn't know or because things had built up around that? Where could we take that as an opportunity to consolidate? And, I always think about, when I think about consolidating, I always go to the banking system, and whenever you consolidate in the banking system, it becomes stronger. And so in doing that, how can we make that stronger? Because people are working together on it, and we're connected to that work together. And then the wonderings that you have. So if you would keep those 4 questions, maybe if you want to tear that sheet out and put it in front of you as we go through this review, that will help you think about all of the work and the questions that we're going to ask you to discuss with us after this review.
Okay, next slide, please. So this is the configuration that you are currently familiar with. And we have updated it because we've had individuals leave our organization and others replace them on these committees. So what you see is the current co-leads for the 9 committees that we have. And what I'm going to ask is I'm going to ask my colleagues if you see that I've missed anything, because we're going to be speaking to everyone's review from the triangulation meeting, feel free to stop me and, and add or correct me, please, because I want to make sure that I'm representing the group well. So we're going to start, next slide, please, with the Student Success Committee, and the leads are Mindy Holmdahl, Emily Sutherland, and Dr. Lisan Taylor. And so, next slide. What they shared with us is their vision statement, and as you can see, it's, looking at having these guide the goals that they're going to work towards and the action steps. And one of the key elements about it is referencing Maslow's hierarchy, and the need to have, safety, basic needs, physiological needs, right? Emotional needs, and belonging as key foundational pieces in order to get to self-actualization. So, and in the book, you all have a copy of this, and I can tell you the page. So page 44 has a graphic that represents stairs to fulfilling potential, and that's what we want. We want every individual and student to fulfill their potential, and we can't forget how important, right, those needs, those basic needs are, and the sense of belonging. Next slide, please. So in terms of family and school collaboration, currently it's myself, Betty Jimenez, and James Yapias. Next slide, please. And they're really focusing on, again, working on innovation. And working smart, right? Working smartly in terms of looking to see what models are out there that have been successful. And I know many of you are familiar with, and probably Vice President Salazar, you're probably, Jenny introduced me to this, the dual capacity, right, framework. Jenny Meriglen, sorry. And so it's really focusing on having that at all our schools so that we have a research-based, evidence-supported model that's working, that's focused on viewing families as true partners and individuals who have funds of knowledge, lived experiences that we can learn from. So that's why we're working on this. Increasing, through this, increasing the number of parents on governance committees, right, where decisions are made. And making sure that it's representative of the community, the diversity in the community they serve. Increase the number of families who access school, district, and community resources to address, there's a typo there, medical, dental, social, emotional, and basic needs. And we were really thinking there in particular about our CLCs and the foundation. Next slide.
So our next committee is early childhood. The leads for this one are Audrey Powell, who is our early childhood specialist, and Holly McIntosh, who is our mathematics specialist or supervisors. Holly also has an extensive early childhood background. And as you know, we have an amazing, I'm trying, Sam, but I'm just going to have to say next slide, thank you. An amazing early childhood program. I'm going to set it over here, it's just frustrating. And so they came up with some goals, and of course, the first thing that we like to do is, while we know that our families are their students' very first and best teachers, that many of our students benefit greatly from having those early education experiences at 3 and 4. And we'd like to continue to expand the amount of or the number of locations that we have and the amount of time that those students can have having that early childhood experience. Another thing that they're very interested in is making sure that we are ensuring all of our parents who participate in this program that we have a consistent program that is led and assisted by a coach who will help make sure that our standards, just like we have K-12 standards, there are standards for pre-K education, that we're meeting those standards and moving those through into each and every classroom, especially our classrooms where we're also working with our special education students and making sure that they're inclusive and welcoming for all of our students. And as we've been talking about talent development and how important it is to keep all of our people, the great work that's been done with our programs to move our professionals forward in the district, we'd like to continue to see pathways made so that our childhood instructors stay and help us build that consistent and excellent program.
Next slide, please. So the Educational Equity, Access, and Advocacy Committee is co-led by Christina and myself. Next slide. And what our goal is, and this is coming from the Intercultural Development Research Association. And so again, they're well vetted, well respected, research, based, evidence-based. And so we want to look to programs that have been successful. And so the goal that did Jeremy leave? I was going to say Jeremy's on our committee, Reynoso. So what we elected as our goal is equitable access and inclusion, because that's important to us, right? Schools ensure unobstructed entrance and access into and full engagement of all learners in high quality programs and activities within each school. So not just the academic, and we literally mean all students. If we are going to promote inclusion, right, then we need to make it happen. And so our objective is to eliminate the barriers that obstruct learners' access, entrance into high quality programs and activities in each school, and eliminate barriers that obstruct learners' full engagement in the same programs and activities. Next slide.
And now we're going to talk a little bit about teaching and learning, which Paul Schulte and I have been co-chairing together. And of course, the very first, it's appropriate that this follow a conversation from Dr. Bundia about eliminating barriers, because eliminating barriers to students being able to learn effectively and well is one of the most critical things that we can do. So next slide, please. Thank you. Our first one really deals with literacy. Being literate, being able to read and write and communicate effectively is one of the most important foundational principles that we can ensure every student has. So you'll notice that we have our board goals. The board has been interested in literacy and has set those goals for us several years ago. And then we also have goals that are set for us by the state. But we're also really looking at speaking and writing, at student production of goals, and our multilanguage learners, ensuring that they are able to fully engage without a barrier into that educational program through increasing their ability to speak, read, write, and listen in all of their subject areas. We have 4 subgroups, and our second subgroup is creativity and expression. Next slide, please, Sam. Thank you. We'd like to increase the opportunities that all students have, and I'll echo Dr. Bundia in saying all of our students should be able to creatively apply accumulated knowledge and demonstrate competency across content areas through increased participation in extension activities, not just the things that happen in the classroom, but the things that really help connect students to the school, to their community, to their friends, to their peers and colleagues. And so that could be an academic decathlon, it could be an art show, it could be a performance, it could be an essay contest, it could be a math competition, any of those things that enable students to show and be recognized internally and externally for the things that they love and that they're good at. Next slide, please. Our third subgroup is civic competency, that we would like to see all students, individually and with others, achieve these 3 domains, that they would be able to demonstrate civic knowledge and disposition, that they understand the rights and welfare of others, that they show how to be respectful towards alternative perspectives and experiences, and that they leave our district valuing equity, inclusivity, diversity, and fairness, that they have skills to be a civic-minded member of their community, that they're able to use conflict resolution skills when they don't agree with people, that they're able to compare multiple sources and viewpoints, and that they act on those opportunities to have civic experiences by engaging in public debate, by volunteering, by voting, by doing all of the things that anchor the democracy that we live in. And our fourth subgroup is our science, technology, engineering, and math, which we'd like to increase articulated opportunity and access to participate in both formal and informal STEM experiences. And our formal STEM experiences, which we'd like to have during the school day, should be present in every feeder program. We talk a lot about robotics at West, but that is also computer science down through our elementary feeders. It's biology feeding into our medical sciences. It's opportunities for students to experience what's happening outdoors and in nature and see how those phenomenon connect to the type of thinking and problem solving that they will do in a variety of different jobs. And then our informal STEM experiences that will allow them to participate in things outside of the school day. Next slide, please.
Okay, so technology and instructional technology, the co-leads there are Sam Quantz and Logan Hall. And of course, this is a drop the mic moment because they've achieved their goal when the board voted, when the board voted to have one-to-one devices. And so, as you can see there, now that one-to-one has been approved by the Board of Education, we need to have discussions surrounding school technology plans, standardization of software, and support. So kudos to, Sam and Logan. There will be another drop the mic moment a little later. Okay, next slide, please.
Another committee on our student achievement plan was research and evaluation. How do we know if we're doing our work, if we're not researching what that would look like, what our best practices are, and evaluating to make sure that we're getting there. This committee is led by Dr. Michelle Amio. Next slide, please. And one of the first things that they did is put together a list of all of the resources that we can draw on to make sure that we are meeting our goals. And each one of those will also be extended into the other committees as we go through discussions about what are the things that we would most like to see be evaluated. So she's created a cycle, next slide please, that will help each of these areas figure out as they figure out their mission and their purpose, then they'll develop goals which will tell her team what is being measured. They will then come up with a plan to measure the goals by looking at the data or the variables that we have or that we need to find a way to have, and then be able to measure the outcomes or what happened. And that puts us in a cycle of simultaneous renewal and continuous improvement, because every time we go through this process, we can say, what is it that needs to be adjusted or changed? And that's not every 5 years, that's every quarter or every year, so that we're sure that we're constantly moving forward in a positive direction. And that is the goal of her committee for all of the other committees. Thank you. Next slide.
Okay, so the co-leads for this committee are Ellen Kearsley, Christy Hart, and Ryan Hunt. And so, Ellen, I don't know if you want to have Christy join us? Okay. But they were they're the best to explain this. It's a little beyond my scope of understanding.
So with the budget and finance, as you look at those individual pillars, truly, all these other pillars have goals. Those goals require, in this case, financial resources to work towards their goals. So what we want to look at is what is a return, you've heard the term return on investment. I input $1, what did I get out? So what we want to look at is what we're calling an academic return on investment. We invest $1 into a program. How many students did that affect? How did it affect them? So there you can see kind of a formula we borrowed from an article of a formula of what academic return on investment would be, which is, what's the increase in student learning times the number of students helped divided by the dollars spent. So what we want to do as our committee is look at all of these pillars and the goals they're working at and the financial resources in conjunction with assessment. What are they accomplishing and how much is it costing? Are we getting a good return on our dollars? And if we're not, maybe we need to try something else to try and get to those goals. So that's kind of what the finance committee is looking at.
Next slide, please. Thank you. So communications and community engagement, the lead is Yandari Chatwin. Next slide, please. And so you can, so there were a lot of goals here, so I'm going to let you read them, and I'm going to highlight as you're reading them. Overall, it's to improve communication with families and other stakeholders in ways that are comprehensible and meaningful, right? And so, does that capture it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
The first one, then you got it.
So, next slide, please. So, as we were actively engaged and excited about this conversation, we had some discoveries. And that's the purpose of, having triangulation meetings or having a debrief or brainstorming, right? And so some of the discoveries, or two of the discoveries you can read there, is that, there are opportunities that exist to build coherence and connection between all of the committees and their work. The other one is to increase, the opportunity to increase our efficiency in how we're doing this to get it to you, for approval by March. That's our goal, right? Of 2023. Or was it 2025? Just joking. Okay, next slide, please. So in terms, this is where we're gonna, this was intentional, okay? So we're gonna have you, oh wait, did I miss something? No, I skipped something, no. Sorry, I jumped through my notes. Okay, so this is where we're gonna have you, if you notice, and hopefully none of the cabinet members changed their dots, their colored dots, and we do have to make some modifications because we have some board members out sick. So we're going to have you think about what we've presented. So you're going to have time to think individually and then write. That's why you've been writing, or you can write, use the document to write. And you each have a colored dot. And you will find when, when you're ready to move, and we don't anticipate that it'll take 5 minutes. Yes?
Sorry, just for board members, the colored dot is on your agendas. That was in your folder packets.
And cabinet members had it on a notepad. Yep, like that. Well, could you hide it, Paul?
Oh, there was just drawn on. I didn't draw on. It was already somebody else. Really good.
Okay, so we did have to make some changes. So, Alan and Board Member Williams, that hasn't changed. Let's see, we have Board Member Sika and Schulte, that hasn't changed. You guys, what color are your dots?
Mine's red.
Okay, red, right? All right. Board Member Kennedy and Dr. Taylor, because you're both online, we're going to have you do your activity using the chat feature. Then we have Board Member or Vice President Salazar and Logan. What colors? Do you have the right color? What colors?
Green.
Okay.
Nice.
And I think we had to change Yandaris because, Board Member Baid is out sick today. So we're going to have you join Board Member Sweat and Student Board Member May, and then President Ford and Christina. Okay.
That's trouble.
So any questions about what you need to do in the next 5 minutes? Okay. Get going.
We're thinking.
Yes, you're thinking first, and then you're going to find, and then you're going to write, and you're going to find your partner, and you're going to share.
I have an extra chair right here. And Lydia, do you want?
What are we doing, Paul? You usually answer all the questions.
Trying to do better.
You can't
So
make
basically,
you can't make Paul do it, Jenny.
I'm in timeout tonight.
Oh, I'm coming.
Lydia, grab your
So they
chair
went
with
through
you.
all these different committees, right, and their findings and everything, and so they're just.
Okay, can we
kinda
stop you
saying-
for just a minute? Dr. Taylor has his hand raised.
Oh, Dr. Taylor, go ahead and join us.
Sorry to interrupt, but my chat is disabled, so I just need my chat enabled so I can participate.
Can't do that.
Better use Teams.
My chat is fine, actually.
We're gonna get Lydia through here.
So basically, what we're trying to do
should've
is
just had you guys
switch
switch.
all this.
Here.
We're trying to
Run
figure
stuff
it out.
through.
We put them in Teams.
Does it seem like?
Dr. Taylor and Board Member Kennedy, could you guys use Teams to chat? Do you have your Teams open?
Is there somehow we jump out of Jenny way that we could consolidate it?
Yeah, I can switch over.
Like that.
And then I kept I was like, why isn't it tightening up? I was like, oh,
There's a ton of, and there's so many ways to look at it, right? Overlap.
Oh, right? We did, and now that's why it's, okay. Go.
Right?
Yep, and so you see that, yeah, because it's in equity.
Yeah, do you want to
what's
do
the other
that?
one?
This one is.
I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I'll put down student success and equity, and let me look at which fitness statement again. Okay. So it's number 3 on the vision. So, okay.
Kind of, right? They sort of are.
All of these pillars have to have that.
Good point.
Okay, I think
So those two committees.
maybe not, it's not redundancy, but it seems like
kind of related.
when they're talking about like creativity and expression, it's talking about like a lot of extracurricular or activity like outside of school or just like supplemental activities.
That be similar.
Which one?
Technology to provide
Under it was under
Please ensure that
but
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an overlap to your equity, so your access
equity,
to,
educational equity.
Jen's hammering it.
All right. The district already has a lot of
There you go, you're the
supplemental extra programs.
Amen.
offer,
I think Sandra said it.
How and creativity and expression is mostly to like allow those
Doing
functions
out,
to be available.
knocking it out.
I'm also strongly with equity and advocacy. So is this research and evaluation,
Uh-huh.
so reading and readiness? It shouldn't be a side check.
We'll do all this.
It's kind of like over.
Yeah, kind of a resource.
Yeah.
Maybe the research and evaluation.
I wanted to see something real quick. Let me turn back
Has all the committees laid out? Yeah. Is it this one?
to
Oh, that one?
teaching and learning.
Really, that drags out.
What page is that? Okay.
I think family and school collaboration and communication.
So it's interesting. So on literacy, on this page here, it talks about the measurements, and then over here it talks about, and so
But I think
it seems to me like assessment is included in the literacy, because if you don't measure it, how are you going to know? So really, as a standalone, it's really more in support of. So I'm
Let's see,
going to
was
put
it
down,
under?
we've got 3 so far. With literacy, we're just saying that those goals are supported
I was
by the
also
assessment. You got to have the assessment to know how your
Now I
growth
lost my
is.
okay.
So rather than be a
Because there was
standalone, it's probably
also
better to be
a
part
piece where they
of
were
it.
talking about.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Was that in the equity? I don't remember now.
I think several people talked about
Yeah.
that. I think they talked about that in educational equity and advocacy.
Board Member Kennedy, did you get my message through Teams?
Yeah, and I think that there has to be some sort of collaboration between all of them, so that we're not.
Dr.
being
Taylor, I
dependent,
can't access
not
Teams right now.
Oh.
So,
The
but I
one that
can,
comes up to
you
me,
can
Jenny,
text
used
me
to what
if,
you're saying is we have-
board member, if President Ford will give you
Got the
my phone
teaching and
number.
learning, right? And then, so here's teaching and learning, a lot of visions and stuff, and then we have early childhood, right?
They should all be working
So a
together.
question that came up to me in my mind is like, why do we separate teaching early childhood out from teaching and learning? It's like, because teaching and learning should cover all kids, right, from the pre-K all the way to 12. And so, and this could be maybe part
I
of.
don't even think they can hear us.
They all should be
But
working
when we
together.
say teaching and learning, it should be for everybody.
Right.
So, okay,
So
so
this might be embedded in.
The natural lull. Who needs more time?
I like that.
We were just,
I'll put
okay,
that down as
we
a
were talking about how
RD.
there's always a natural lull.
I know. So here's what my wonderings are.
Okay.
Because I
We knocked it out because we only had to come up with a couple.
We're gonna script for them.
every single one.
They're still talking.
And that if we're
We're
not
ready.
We're ready.
looking at how do you take research?
Jenny's ready to be the
and
spokesperson.
assessment?
Bryce and I were ready to be. Hey, Jenny, the #1 graduation speech
So to
ever.
me, that
Amen.
is a wondering for me.
What I used to
How
tell the board business
We
when I was
need
at
to make sure that our data might be forgotten. research and our assessment is hitting every single one of these areas. They're all collaborating together to develop that.
I would agree. I would also say the budget and the finance committee especially because they focused on
Everybody wants to
like
hear their kids, and they want to hear their
essentially
kids'
that is
name.
like
That was it. So when you did that, I was like, oh, man. That's my heart. Warms my heart.
Well, and so then that leads me to my last one, which is our pandemic graduation. I feel like and so our backstory
Yeah.
is coaching development.
I loved it. I had a kid who graduated during that pandemic.
So it was just make sure.
I had one that
we see
graduated during the
data
pandemic
right
as well.
now.
Yeah.
East High School, it was so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So
And the same thing in Taylorsville, you know, they recognized the kids individually. It was, I think we really stepped up to honor our children.
It all has to
That's
go
cool.
back to what Alan was saying to those pillars. You know, we have to
I think time's up, Dr. Buendias.
That group got it done.
Did you notice me getting prepared?
Getting secret.
Okay.
Jenny Seeker speaks.
So we were still having technology issues, and so Board Member Kennedy and Dr. Taylor, we are happy to scribe when it's your turn to share out, and so we'll do that. So the next thing that we would like for you to do, remember you selected a scribe and you selected a speaker. So, yeah. So the
I don't know if they're going to be able to read it.
Okay, so we're going to give you, here's the thing, we're going to give you an opportunity to, so that we have it memorialized, we're going to give you a few minutes, not 5, so just maybe 2, to go and add,
Student success and equity.
the scribe needs to go and add your comments to the appropriate poster, and then when we have an opportunity, we're going to have you speak to it, okay? And so let me, I'm trying to think what's the best way.
It's all three of those. We kind of spoke to it. that
Dr.
way.
Taylor, do you want to text me
Right.
your responses, and then I can write them? And then Board Member Kennedy, I'm not sure if you have my number or not, but maybe. Does she have your phone
And
number?
then
Oh, you can, Dr. Kennedy, do you mind texting Dr. Hall, and she can scribe for you?
two tack. And that's everything. So, yeah, redundancy and then over when we have to
Okay, all
consolidate.
right, 2 minutes.
All right, we're writing?
Are we writing
go,
now?
let's go.
Yeah, okay, we'll do it together. Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna put my wondering on there about.
I like that. She's not making art. You write anything?
We just write one or we write more? I don't know.
We only have 2 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, they're keeping you to 2 minutes. You gotta go.
What? What was my other installation? I had 2. Oh.
Yandri's looking for tape.
I think I'll write
I know, right? I know, it's true. She just can't find any tape anywhere. We're a school district and we have no tape. If it ends up on the wall, you know that it's permanent markers.
Didn't see through on.
Did you go to West or rebuild?
I was at a concert for the meeting at West, but I did go to the Highland meeting.
Oh, good. I was
Yeah.
at the Highland meeting. What'd you
Yeah.
think? I thought it was good.
I thought it was good. I thought I would have liked more feedback from different members of the community. I think a lot of the feedback and perspectives came from a similar place and
Oh,
ideas.
was it? Okay.
And I think,
I know they had that girl going around with
Yeah.
cards, you
Yeah.
know, gathering cards.
yeah. No, I think she did a good job. I think just like the population in general that went to that meeting was not
I
as
see what you're
represented.
saying.
Yeah, no, I think
Oh,
the
I
girl
totally
did
see
a
what you're
lovely
saying.
job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, now I know what you're saying. You're saying that, that it represents the demographic of the school better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, there was, I was a little disappointed in not more people at both meetings. I think that was the conversation.
I think something that I is that I don't know how many people,
Okay, la más inteligente.
know what feasibility study means.
Oh, I don't think they do either.
And so I think that's probably part of the reason.
Oh, wow.
Like, I think that
Why don't you just go back and type it up on Word and then just print it out?
that might help get more.
I think so too.
Okay. All right, start making your way back, except for the speaker. The speaker needs to stay.
It was such a great answer.
Yeah,
It was.
I almost just wonder if there's a different word we can use with advocating.
That's a really good insight. Yeah, we'll have to have.
Okay, and we're going to start with the very first question.
Good job, Yandri.
And I'll share Dr. Taylor's in a moment.
Christina, time is
He's
up.
sending me something. Okay, time's up.
Did you see her face?
Okay.
I was scribing for Paul and Jenny.
No, we gave you good,
Saying mean things about me.
we gave you good ideas.
Wait, isn't there something here about being nice to each other?
Absolutely.
And our mindset?
Or Jenny, or
There you go.
you want me to say,
That's right.
sustainability happen.
Speak and
Your
listen in ways that
sustainability
show your
on the one
respect.
Okay, we need all speakers for your group to go over to the first question. Where
What was
do
the
you
first thing
see
I said?
Overlap between committees.
Oh, too much.
Taking me back to
Yeah.
yours.
I got it. How can we make it more manageable? Okay. We'll hit both of those. I can say those very quickly.
Christina.
What are we doing now? I'm sorry, I was misbehaving.
Were you watching the game?
No, we're losing.
You're never gonna live that down.
We're losing
He's
eight.
never
We're
gonna live
losing
that
8-4
down.
right now. It doesn't matter. I turned it off. I don't care anymore.
Okay.
How did we get all those speakers
Okay.
up there?
I
Look at
know,
how many
wait,
people are
why
there.
do we have so many speakers?
I'm not leaving Logan.
Because guess what? Christina was still adding.
I'm a big cheater.
That's
Okay.
a big cheater.
So you're gonna share the mic because we wanna have our audience hearing everything. So the first question is, where do you see overlap between committees? So who's gonna take the mic first?
I'll go first since I'm holding all of the mics. So Bryce and I, so budget and finance, technology and research and evaluation really overlap all others, all other of the pillars.
Thank you.
Our group saw some overlap between communications and family and school collaboration, and teaching and learning and equity.
And this is from Dr. Kennedy. She saw overlap between communication, community engagement, and family-school collaboration, and between research and evaluation and technology as foundations.
Thank you. So I will bring Diet Coke to anybody who sings their speaking part.
I don't drink Diet Coke.
She will, and then she's a big fibber.
Same. We've said a lot of the same things. Student success and equity. We can see that you really can't have one without the other, and any goals you set in one, you need to filter through the other. Early childhood, as we looked through their goals that they've already set and the work they've already done, which is awesome. A lot of it is about alignment with preparation for what we're doing in K-12. So those definitely need to be working together. And then we saw overlap between community and community engagement and the family school collaboration one as well.
All
Sing
right.
it.
I'm not gonna. Nobody wants to hear that. And I don't drink Diet Coke either. For it, sorry. Anyhow, and it's not a cop-out answer by any means, but we put. We think that they all overlap and rightfully should overlap. But seriously, as we got more in depth in the conversation, we did see some overlap between things like family and school collaboration, and student success or early childhood, and so on. And then the one thing that we did talk about, and we might see this over on consolidation too, Logan and I talked about how equity and educational advocacy should more or less potentially be the umbrella to all of these things, because equity should be intertwined in all of these pillars moving forward, and are already in many ways a part of them. So,
Absolutely. Student achievement and assessments. But I want a regular Coke, not a Diet Coke. We thought the only way you can measure student achievement is by assessing it.
Yep. And then we did talk about, and I'm sure you've all mentioned it, that really the budget and finance, as well as technology and what was the other one? Research and evaluation really are embedded in everything we do. It's that cycle of continuous improvement, as well as the resources we put to it, and then how we know what we're doing.
Great work, team. Applause.
Good job.
Regular Coke. Yeah.
Next question.
It is all in orange because I was scribing.
Okay, it's
I
okay.
have to do all the talking.
Where do you see redundancy?
Paul, that's mostly you, I wrote.
I can
Correct.
start. Our group thought that parent engagement was mentioned by multiple committees, so it's not that it was redundant, it's just that we should all be collaborating if we're all focused on the same things, and we should be focusing on how to break down barriers together.
We thought that teaching and learning, that early childhood shouldn't be pulled out from teaching and learning, because teaching starts when the kids are tiny and all the way up.
What was the other one for yours, too, Paul?
The top one, the accessibility to tech and equity, but I think I'd leave it up there for someone else to
Well,
use.
because we talked about access, a lot of them were, access for all students to a lot of different things.
Okay. Well, hey, we don't want to be redundant here, so let's move on. Where do you see opportunities to consolidate? Great job.
I think we've talked a lot about teaching and learning with early childhood, for sure. Communication and family student. Collaboration. I will get that eventually. But yeah. Others? I should be talking in the mic.
Right.
Singing.
And then we were just saying educational equity and student success.
Right.
That was the other one.
Well, we looked at community engagement, communication, community engagement, and family school collaboration had a lot of overlaps in them as well. They could consolidate.
The one that hasn't been mentioned, our group agreed with that finance, technology, and assessment are really part of all the other groups.
All the check marks are what we put down, because we saw that, we went up there and we put big check.
All right, for your mic. Okay, so I am speaking on behalf of Dr. Taylor, so I'm just going to read what he texted me. So he says, I think an excellent job has been done regarding overlap and redundancy. My wondering is how to bring in the various representative groups to our consolidated groups. Are we doing focus groups or large group sessions? So I wanted to make sure, that's the wonderings.
Transition down to wonder.
So let's transition down to wonderings.
I will start, so I got here first. One of our wonderings was how, well, we mentioned that assessment touches every other area, how we were going to go about making sure that that group's work is reflected across everybody else's. And then the overlap between finance as well as research and evaluation. Our group talked about how finance really is looking for the return on investment for student success, and that should be taken into account in the evaluation piece as well. And then the last wondering is, what is the role, the responsibility of the board in terms of budget development and aligning with this and looking at the outcomes for students?
Yeah, I thought it was wanderings, so we were just...
That's because you're a numbers guy, Alan.
The thing we thought of, will the committees that we have, will they lose their focus with the consolidation? And just how does it's kind of in line with what Dr. Taylor said.
All right, the wondering that Logan and I discussed is, how do we ensure access? This is a big part part of your component of the presentation, Dr. Hall, when the qualifications are testing or standards that students must meet to qualify to enter those programs, some of which we might not have control over how to adapt those exams or those tests, and or state qualifications or federal qualifications that might be leaving students behind.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. It's an interesting question because actually maybe athletics has more of that. You know, you have to have a GPA to play, but there aren't any prerequisites on our academic programs. So, and I appreciate that as a wondering because it's something that we confront a lot. Oh, I didn't take this, you know, I didn't take honors, so I can't go to IB, or, you know, I just took regular, so now can I take AP? And the answer is yes. But that wondering makes me see that it's that continual need for our PR around access is there. Please come. Thank you.
But I will say, if I can add to what you're saying, the committee that Christina and I are co-leading on, we've had the same kinds of discussions, and we've talked, I mean, there are perceptions and practices, even though we promote, right, eliminating those barriers. And so a lot of the work that we've discussed in our particular committee is addressing those very things that you're talking about. So, awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, we talked about the sustainability.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it?
I just said you're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
That was my wondering.
But even beyond our sustainability plan, we also need to be able to, and those resources, right, Paul? And I hear that. We also just need to be able to sustain this work. So I want to make sure that this doesn't become something that we get a lot of energy behind and around initially, and then we leave it and become something that's set aside while we do other things.
Remember I said a drop the mic moment's coming up?
Ready
for it.
You don't have a microphone yet, so you might as well drop this one.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. He's really making me repeat this. I said, remember I said we have another drop the mic moment? It's coming up. I'm excited.
Now you have to drop it.
Oh, well, not yet.
And Sam gets mad at us. Don't drop it.
Okay, all right, so you can either stay with your buddy or go back to your seats, but let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and move on with our presentation. You were fabulous. Thank you for participating. Thank you, Board Member Kennedy and Dr. Taylor. Okay. We'll just wait just a little bit to have everybody settle in.
That was fun. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry for being silly.
No, that is very much as Paul described, you know, the organic nature of these discussions and the comfort level that you feel engaging in this work. So no apologies needed. You guys did absolutely what we hoped would happen. All right, so let's see, next slide, please. Creating a coherent and meaningful strategic plan for student achievement. That's what we're going to focus on. I wanted to make sure that it was assigned to me. I'm like, wait, is it Dr. Hall? So with that regard, in that regard, we are striving for efficient use of time, energy, and expertise, right? We want to use all of our valuable time intently, deliberately, striving to eliminate redundancy, striving to align our work with current practice in the field of education, striving to ensure the document is meaningful and useful. So it doesn't become something that gets shelved. And we are working toward a paradigm shift that this document is part of our continuous cycle of improvement, because that's what we should be looking at. There is really, we have particular goals that we want to achieve, but this notion of being introspective and continuing our growth is what we want to have everybody reach that mindset and adopt that practice. So next slide, please. So our recommendation, because we saw a lot of the similarities that you identified, we identified committee stewardship spanned multiple essentials, right? So multiple of our committees. Intentional consolidation of committees would promote coherence. Next slide, please. Some of the worries that were expressed to us was, do we lose the work? Does somebody's voice and identity get lost? And so our assurances are existing work will be kept and used, existing committee members will be kept, existing priorities will be kept, because it's all important. We just want to eliminate the redundancy. You saw a lot of similar language across the committees.
Can I interrupt you there, Dr.
Absolutely.
Buendia? These are really important to me, and so I appreciate that. I have had the opportunity to participate in a couple of committees and have been so impressed by the work that's been done and the people who are on those committees and the conversations that have been had, that I would really hate to see the energy that comes from that participation lost, because those are it's been really good work and really important work. So I want to validate the work that's been done and would never want anything to undermine that work.
May I ask a question
Sure.
to what your point is, Melissa? Because I agree with everything that you're saying, but maybe at this point, the question I want to ask you, Dr. Buendia and Dr. Hall, is there anybody who's missing from the committees that we need to have at the table?
Why, yes.
Yes.
And how do we now bring them in?
Next slide, please.
Okay.
So and I want to say how much I appreciate those as questions, because in our previous student achievement plan, we had all of them very separated. But I would say in the last 6 or 7 years or 5 years or for a long time, we've really been this is my 30th year in education, and for 30 years we've been talking about how do we break down silos? How do we really consolidate and intentionally find ways to bring all of our excellent work together? And again, when we consolidate, it doesn't mean that we're taking things away. It's that we're finding the ways to put things together in strong ways where we're connected and we're efficient and we are not redundant. So I call this the spaghetti slide. And it starts with all of our original 9 committees. And then depending on where they go, we have identified 5 areas that consolidate those silos. And some people are in more than one of these new boxes, and that's appropriate. So if we follow, let's start with the aqua lines. The aqua lines consolidate communication, community engagement, family and school collaboration into a group called Family School Partnerships, Community Engagement, and Communication. And we thought it was important to start with Family School Partnerships because that's the overall goal of all of that work. Now, does that mean that in teaching and learning we don't want those? Well, of course not. But it means that that is where the stewards will hold that as we come to it. So I want to point out that, oh, did I miss? How come I don't have any lines going to that one? Oh, because that's right. Never mind. I know the answer, Paul. I worked it out. I made the slide more than 5 minutes ago. That is correct. So if we follow the purple lines, I hope nobody in this group is colorblind. If you follow the purple line, sorry, Paul, well, you're not a purple line, so it's okay. That takes educational equity and advocacy and our student success. and it moves it into a group called Educational Equity, Access, and Student Support. That idea of ensuring that all of those things will happen together, and that's the big group that it lives with. Then if we follow green, this will be a surprise. Teaching and learning and early childhood come together into a square called Pre-K-12 Student Achievement. And that's not to say that we don't also work with educational equity and access and student support, and that we want that family-school partnership. That's an incredibly important part of everything we do with student achievement. And then I've got some red lines. The red lines come from budget and finance, technology and informational technology, and research and evaluation. And we brought that down, legal's not in the first 9, right? And we brought that down into a square called accountability, because one of the things that we were really thinking about as we had these conversations was, how do we demonstrate that accountability to our community, to our teachers, to our administrators, to our students, to everybody who invests in us, either financially, temporally, or physically, or mentally. And that accountability comes through 4 departments. So here's one voice that's been lost. We know that our budget and finance is going to be deeply engaged in our academic return on investment, that research and evaluation is going to help us come up with our outcomes and make sure that we're moving those things forward, that technology is going to work with us to make sure that all of our students are ready to be 21st century learners, but also that we have access to communication and all of those other pieces. But we're also putting in our legal and policy support, because when we think about the constitutionality of equity and access, we have to be thinking about that in terms of the policies that the board sets and the administrative procedures that the district has in order to ensure that everything that we do is legal and accountable to all of our constituents.
May I just stop you right there and just say standing ovation? I mean, that thought that you just had, Dr. Hall, is genius. It is, because when you think about being compliant, making sure that we are on track, that we are following state law, policy, all of that evolves around everything, whether it's about our money, whether it's about our facilities, whatever it is. So bravo that you put that in there.
Well, we are really excited about that, because, when we were talking in this group, it hit us that nothing really in this district happens without going through an accountability process. And those signatures end up coming from legal and policy and from budget and finance. And that makes sure that the money that we're spending, whether it is state money, grant money, foundation money, all of those things are accountable. And we want our community to know that we take that very seriously.
Do you mind if I?
Please.
So I'm going to embarrass Christina, but I will say that she had the aha moment in both our triangulation meeting and as we were talking about consolidation. And so it hadn't occurred to us, because we focused so much on the other departments, that we lost sight. Yeah, the silos, that we lost sight, right, of the very assurances, safeguards, and underpinning of everything that we do.
That's so great.
So, but I sent Tiffany a text that said, sorry about my dumb moment.
No.
Like I missed it. So.
Oh, no.
Okay.
And then we have a 4th, which wasn't up there, so that's why it doesn't have any lines, and that is our learning environments, stewardship, and sustainability. And that includes several things, too. That includes, how do our learning spaces, our schools, our classrooms, our community learning centers, all of those pieces, truly under Paul Schulte's stewardship, how do they come together to help us learn effectively and help us invite our community in and make sure that they know that they're welcome? And, the conversation that Principal Nicole Palmer, I lost that for a second, and Mr. Yapius and Mr. Schulte had about how do we make sure that there's advertising and that they can see that they need to, that they're welcome to come in. That's part of a learning environment. But also a stewardship of all of our resources. And so this includes like our talent development under Human Resource Services. And so when my early childhood is saying, well, we want to connect from, our paraprofessionals to our instructors, what does that look like? That's a stewardship and a sustainability and inclusion planning that comes through our human resources department. So we really did realize that there were some squares up there that when we think about schools, it is way too complex to just think that they happen. You know, it's sort of interesting to be in this quadrant building, right? And while I'm still 82 degrees sometimes, one of the things I love about being in this building is that you suddenly realize, in a way that we didn't in the old building, that all the quadrants are important, right? And so, like, there's this teaching, learning, research, and evaluation quadrant, and a business quadrant, and a SPED quadrant. And, you know, how do we make sure that all of these quadrants are pushing in and working together? And somehow it just makes more sense when it's all flat like this. So next slide, please. This is just a consolidation or a deep dive into how each one of these will have each one of the 4 committees, and I'm going to come back to our accountability square in just a second, but where that previous work and those previous subcommittees will fall. So you can see that all of those committees and major initiatives of our district do fall under these 4 areas. And then, next slide, please.
This is the drop the mic
Yes.
moment.
Then all of those, oh, good, but I don't have that one, right? That must be your slide.
Wait.
Oh, is that mine? Okay, it is, it is. There's a lot of dropping the mic. Sorry, I'm glad we have 3 mics. That all of this, all of these committees are centered around our square of accountability. That research and evaluation with Dr. Amio, the technology and instructional technology, which is stewarded by Sam Quantz, budget and finance, Alan and Christine Ryan, and then policy and legal support with Christina. So during our triangulation meeting with these 20 great minds that were sitting around the table, we had yet one more thought about how we could really help to represent those things that are important. So this is our next slide, please. This is our draft, a draft way of looking at all of these things put together. So coming back to our board statement of excellence and equity, every student, every classroom, every day, one of the conversations that happened in all of the subcommittees was coming back to that student. How do we, that student-centered sentence, how do we keep the student at the center of this? Every classroom, every day. And then looking at those 4 major pillars around the work of student achievement, family and school partnerships, building those positive learning environments that include engagement and access and reducing barriers, and then equity, access, and support. And then all of that is held in a circle of accountability to our community. That's very important to us. And that's policy and legal services, research and evaluation, and then financial responsibility, which encircles us in a circle of belonging and safety. And then what you can't kind of see in that is we realized that this brought some core values up to the front. And we just like to share those with the board that you can't quite see it because of the Zoom thing, but it's equity, inclusion, transparency, and sustainability. That those are pieces that cross into each one of these squares. So that is kind of, at the end of this triangulation meeting, the synergy in the room ended us up with something that looks like this.
Next slide, please. Okay, so we have some discussion questions for you to consider to start the discussion section of this presentation. And we will, just keep in mind that a lot of this is in draft form, clearly. And so we have opportunities. You can tell like that, the third drop the mic moment. We're trying to figure out how to fit all the titles, all the wording. And so we're working with Jenny Vuich on that. And so we were excited about showing you how it's conceptualized. So the discussion questions that we propose to you, and of course I'm certain that you'll have more, something to consider: is it a student achievement plan or a strategic plan for student achievement? Is this work based on current research and best practice thinking? will this plan embed systemic and continuous improvement? That's key. That's to what you were speaking about. Does this plan encompass our core values, and will it be sustainable over time? And so we're really looking, right, to have this change practice, change paradigm, change perspectives, perceptions, all of that. So we are now available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Buendia.
And thank you to
Dr.
our
Hall.
team, our larger team of 20, and our larger team of individual committee members.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for leading us through this study. There's opportunity for questions from board members. I will say I'm really impressed with this work. I like to hear you say, Dr. Hall, that there was great synergy in your triangulation meeting about this. I like where you're headed with this graphic. I don't see technology on here. It sounds like you're trying to work through some
That's
things.
what Christina asked.
Yeah.
I said it didn't fit.
Okay.
It's supposed to be in that green, yeah, in that circle right
Which
there.
kind of leads to what my comment is. I like where you're headed with a graphic that encompasses the work that we're doing, because it's a visual that is really impactful and not so wordy that it gets lost. It's easier to visualize what we're doing. And we've talked, when we started talking about this, a long time ago, and looking at other plans, in our previous strategic plan, which I thought was really good, there were a lot of pillars, a lot of different things that were separate. And it was hard to want to think about losing any of those as focus, because they were all important. And so, as you've kind of worked me through this process, I really like that we haven't given up any of the important focus that we've got, but we've made it stronger, consolidated it, as you've described. And so I really like where this is headed. And it's really important to me, though, that the voices that have been involved in this work up until this point continue to be, and then that we continue to add voices to it as we move forward, so that we have the same kind of synergy at the next triangulation meeting you have, because it's been built. I mean, I feel like you had that. It sounds really great, this meeting. This work, if this work represents what was there, that meeting was really good.
I love this development of this plan. I think that it's so important for us to have an overarching vision, for our district that connects us all together. So I love the idea, actually, of changing it to strategic plan, for student achievement. I think that that's what you hear more often, is strategic plan, than you do achievement plan. I think achievement plan sometimes has become a dirty word, and so even if we looked at something different than achievement. I'm going to just echo what Melissa said about manageable goals. I hope that what we look at, and Dr. Hall and Dr. Buendia, you've been in the district long enough, you know that we can't have a list as long as my body. It has to be like as long as my head, so that you can attain those goals, and then move on to the next one that becomes relevant around that topic. So I'm looking forward to seeing those pieces. But for me, as I try and think of my role in this, that when you come with action plans and your goals, I also need to see the budget development, because that's my role in all of this, is to be able to, work with our business administrator and the other 6 members of our board to make sure that we have not just goals that we want to attain, but the resources to do it, and be able to provide the professional development that we're going to need in order to have our teachers and our paraprofessional, all of our staff, to be successful, to help our teachers be successful. So that's key for me, is budget development, is to make sure that that piece is in there, so that we understand when Alan comes with numbers, and that we're already versed in it, and that we're not going to have to reinvent what you're bringing to us because we don't have enough money. So be thinking about that as
Okay.
you come to us with those pieces. Otherwise, I think that the questions that you've asked us are so important, that we make sure that we continue to use research. I saw research. I see that in almost all the things that you bring us. We need to always be data mining. So I completely agree that needs to be in there, and that continuous improvement. I love the core values. I think that graphic is so awesome. And once you get technology in there with Sam.
It wasn't intentional, Sam.
I know.
Don't cut off my access.
But I think, it's not that we want it to be hanging in schools, a graphic, but I think that it needs to be something that's visual, that we all can see, and that we can say, we get that part, I understand that part. And I can guarantee you that every time that one of us step into a school, some way, somehow, this is brought up. And I want to be able to talk about it. I want to be able to celebrate it. I want to be able to know that we have money for it, whatever we need. So thank you again for such a great night. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
Any other? Yeah, of course. Thank you, Lydia.
I appreciate the focus central to students throughout all of this. One idea I would add is under accountability, you talk about the return on investment for students and the educational value they get. I think it would be valuable to have student feedback in accountability. I think there's some outcomes for students that are measurable, but I think throughout all of this, if we're really talking about serving students, students should be able to advocate for themselves and be able to be given the resources for them to make statements about which of these things the district is doing really well with, and which of these areas the district is falling short. So I would ask that students be included in the accountability.
And I appreciate that. And when we were talking about missing voices, we're missing student voices on our committee. Unless, I haven't seen it, but I think across the board, we're missing student voices.
About on
And-
these committees.
Yeah, and so we need to,
Engage.
yeah,
And to engage other students on those committees. I think the focus
and so
helps.
hopefully, right, now that, with your, if you are all feeling good about it, with the consolidation, then we can maybe, and maybe student board member figuring out how we reach out to levels and schools to be able to have, the voices that definitely are missing currently.
Maybe one of the things to think about, Lydia, as you go about and trying to figure out how to gather this information in, is there was a number of years ago, there used to be principal councils. And, we don't want it to always be the student body officers or, they need to, but I think that the principals have a good idea of how to reach out and pull kids into a council. And then Dr. Buendia and Dr. Hall, you could provide those questions back to the students, and have them meet in those councils and then provide information back to Lydia that she could then, funnel to you, or even through the principals, bringing those through. I know that Mr. Schulte did that over at Highland, and I think that it really made a difference in some of the things that, happened around the school and in the community when those councils were put together. So that might be one idea, think of how to get that feedback. It's a great idea.
That's an awesome idea. Thank you. So I heard Board Member Sweat volunteer you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be playing tennis for many long time at the Yankees. Back at one with the grandstand at the bottom. Judge got his 60th home run.
All right.
So it's worth taking the British tonight. I'll deal with that anytime.
It was all in love, Paul. All in love.
So people may not know that Paul and I grew up in the same area. And go Mets.
Yeah.
Come on.
No.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
Hardly ever claims me in a public setting.
Go Mets.
Dodgers. Definitely the Dodgers.
Dodgers.
All right. Any other comments about this? I think what I'm hearing, and we don't have everybody here, and we aren't giving board, like by vote direction, but I am hearing support for this consolidation. If that's true, you can let me know just by nodding or thumbs up. I think that I'm hearing a lot of support for the way this is moving forward. I think, we've got some good direction. Hopefully you feel like you've got some good direction on how to lead this work forward with bringing more voices to the table and those specific goals that can be attached to it. And we're really looking forward to the next time that you come to the board and see where this work has progressed from now to then. And it's important work. And one of the things I talked about in my little group, me and Christina, who love that center where it's about the student and the excellence and equity, but almost should just have a picture of our students and just a real visual of who it is that we are focused on, that we're here about, that everything we do, it matters to those students. And I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of the positive energy that I feel around it. So thank you for that. Any other comments from board members on this section of our study? We spent a lot of time on it, but we should spend a lot of time on this. This is something that's important. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and excuse you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. That actually concludes our study session topics for the night. Next, we have our board member reports. And for that, while you guys are thinking about your reports, I'm going to ask our student board member, Lydia, to give her report. As you remember, Lydia, we had a really great conversation with Lydia last meeting about her role as a student board member and communication with students, and she's got a report for us on what she's been doing in the previous 2 weeks. So I'll turn the time to you, Lydia.
Hello. Okay. So I had the opportunity to meet with Yandri, and we discussed what we discussed in the last board meeting, which was how we can better communicate with the students, or what we're doing as a board, and the communication we can do. So one of the first things we discussed was that a lot of what the board is doing is already being sent out to high school students through their email with the newsletter. But what I brought up is that I think a lot of the ways in which the information is accessible for students, it's available but not necessarily accessible, if that makes sense. I think like a lot of the language that we sometimes use communicating to students and a lot of the way we communicate with students isn't necessarily in a way that students find particularly like interesting or relevant to their own lives. I think we talk a lot about the things that the district is doing and the board is doing, but we don't do a good job of explaining what it means for students in their like own life. I think people sometimes do a better job like understanding things if they feel it like within their own life and see how it impacts them. The other thing that I discussed with her was the idea of either the whole board or me as a student board member going to high schools and middle schools to discuss issues in the schools and in the district directly with students. Some idea I had would be something like donuts with the district or something like that, to make it fun for students to feel like, one, the district and the board care about them, and two, just like to see what the district is doing and to offer a better opportunity to directly talk to board members or to me about that. So those were the two main ideas we discussed, although there's some other ideas, specifically with the student achievement plan we also brought up, but it's late, so I can talk about those later.
So thank you so much, Lydia, and I appreciate the thought you've put into this, and to Yandri for her help and support with that. I think what I'd love to do is maybe put this on a to continue talking about it, and so that we can more formally adopt a support for what you're talking about. And if the board is in support of that, just let me know. Thank you. Any other board member reports?
I have just one thing that
Go
I
ahead.
want to say is that, tonight the board received an email from one of our teachers, right? Teacher from East High, Stephanie Shelton. And I just want to publicly notice her, just say thank you to her of reminding all of us that we need to celebrate the good things that are going on in the school district. It's easy to get caught up in the negativity. And I think that reading that letter tonight was the perfect way for me to start the board meeting. And then to end it with talking about our strategic plan and learning about different ways to talk with our students, that Lydia just went through, is a really great way for us to end our meeting tonight. And so I appreciate, Stephanie, I want to say thank you for the letter that you sent to us and reminding us that we do need to celebrate, the things that are going on in our district more often. On a personal note, I think that, when my last child graduated from Salt Lake City School District in 2003, and I now have a granddaughter that is attending one of our schools. And so a perspective of a grandma, I just cannot tell you how much I appreciate those first grade teachers and how they look after our kids, as a whole school, looking after. And so we do need to celebrate those moments. So I just wanted to say that. I just really appreciated Stephanie starting my night off the way that she did with her great letter.
Thank you, Christy. Do we have any other board member reports? Nate, go ahead.
Mine's pretty quick, but I thought we had a really good, speaking of East, two things out of East. I thought we had a really good SEC meeting the other day, and we talked a lot about just different initiatives that are going on in the district, and they were really appreciative of the approval that the board has had for additional support when it comes to safety in schools. So that's something that they were really excited about. And then I was at an East football game a couple weeks ago and was talking with a teacher at the game. I won't say who they are because I didn't ask or they didn't give permission for me to say who they are, but they really wanted to see if the board would entertain us having a kind of a discussion or a kind of where we at now type of discussion relative to the decision that we made with late start. And if we need to evaluate things, if we need to tweak things, how do we demonstrate that it's having a really positive impact? And so I promised them that I would share that with my colleagues and see if there is support for us to put some plans in place to have that type of discussion, kind of a where are we now and where are we going relative to late start. So I just wanted to put that out there, yeah, I can talk with the rest of the folks offline and with you, President Ford, about that too.
Thank you, Nate. Any other reports? As the guardian of a 16-year-old, I know that 8:45 has been lovely. But I do think that it's good to assess how we're doing. I think with everything, with every initiative we move forward, we should look at it.
I just want to make a comment about that. President Ford, that that this is not the time to discuss late start. I realize because it's not noticed on our agenda, but that was not something that it was not a trial. It was when we did it permanently, and there's tons of data, just increasing data about why it's so much healthier for students, and it isn't necessarily ideal for some teachers. Maybe for some families, but overall the benefits are so strong, and so it late start was not a trial for us, it was permanent. And so I don't know, I mean, we should certainly look to make sure that it's doing what it needs to do, but in terms of evaluating it to change, I mean, that was not the purpose of Late Start. It was a permanent move based on the fact that, just as one data point, that it reduces suicidal ideation by 68%.
Thank you, Catherine. So I didn't hear Nate saying we should evaluate it to do it.
No, and I'm not
that we
saying
should
that
look at it, and I think that we can discuss that moving forward. I know I appreciate what you have to say, and I hear you.
It's alarming to me to hear that we should be evaluating Late Start. So I know that it's board member Salazar is just reporting on what he was told. But like I said, I just think it's important for us to remember that this was a really important move, and it was based on significant, undisputable evidence about student mental health.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. Thanks, Catherine. Any other comments from board members, reports? Okay, we've kept you for a long time. We appreciate the work you've done. We've accomplished the work that was on our agenda. I will end the meeting, call it adjourned, with a huge thank you to all of you who participated and for the really good work that you are doing. It's noticed. I see it. It's hard work. It's not always appreciated the way it could or should be. And I really am grateful to each one of you for what you do and what you bring to the table. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you and have a good night. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Everyone. Okay, look at, we went there. Just had her face.
Oh my God, that's so